AMC stock closing green today. That is an excellent sign that we could be nearing a bottom, but, and I emphasize this but because tomorrow is going to be a big deal. The Nasdaq's on the decline, the SPY is on the decline, and inflation data is coming out tomorrow morning. Now guys, in this video, I want to talk about how the stock market and specifically AMC stock could react to this inflation data, because at this point, we have a very, very sensitive market, a very sensitive investor base, and even the slightest of jerks can cause a lot of movement. Now, this could be to the upside. It could also be to the downside. So I want to discuss the possibilities, and if it sounds like something you're interested in, let's get started. What's up, everybody? I'm Clay. I'm here to make 2022 the best year ever. If you haven't clicked that subscribe button, make sure to subscribe to the channel. Join us. Become a bro. We are here every single day, and we are growing our portfolios together. Look, if you're brand new to investing, you don't know how or where to get started, you got a link in the description for Webull. Super simple to set up your account. Any deposit gets you guys 5 free stocks. Any $1 crypto trade, you're going to get $5 in your choice of free crypto. And then you guys get crypto exclusive exchanges down there as well. But, you know, listen. I don't know exactly where to start this and the tone that I want to set in this video, but inflation is extremely important right now. And whether or not it's important because, you know, you're going out and you're paying 8% more now than you were a year ago, whether or not it's hitting you in some way, whether it's, you know, when you go to the grocery store or your stocks, it's hitting you in some way. Now, this is going to be very important for the stock market because we've seen inflation increasing at a drastic pace for several months now. And this narrative about increasing interest rates in order to combat inflation, it's continuing. And it's actually growing as well. You know, the Federal Reserve is starting to say that we're looking more seriously at 0.5 percentage point increases, this 50 basis point increase. We might use this more often this year, and inflation continues to run rampant. If you look at the government, which I don't want to talk about because whatever's going on there these days, you know, they try to shift the blame. They're saying that this is not inflation, this is a Putin price hike. And nobody ever wants to take responsibility when things are running out of control. But the Fed, the Federal Reserve, is the one that has to combat this inflation. And regardless of why, okay, if we just get past the why we're seeing an 8.5% expected increase in inflation tomorrow, you know, the Federal Reserve has to come along and raise interest rates in order to wrangle that inflation in, bring it back down to that 2% target, and move on before it runs wild and we enter some sort of a recession. Now, how does AMC stock and how does the stock market react? You know, the expected data for tomorrow on CPI is 8.5%. Now, that means that goods and services cost 8.5% more now than they did last year. And the previous month came in at 7.9%. So they are expecting not only that inflation and prices are increasing, but they are accelerating as well. This is bad news. This is bad news for companies. This is bad news for consumers. This is bad news for the stock market if inflation continues to run wild like this. And this will be bad news for AMC stock if it continues, because it means that the Federal Reserve has to continue to raise interest rates potentially at an accelerated pace, just like inflation is accelerating, so that they can get things under control. And if you're unfamiliar with the correlation between rising interest rates and rising stock prices, or falling stock prices and rising inflation and stock prices and so on, if inflation rates and interest rates are rising, stock prices should fall because investors will take their money out of riskier assets, which will be losing money, and putting them in safer assets as safe haven investments like just savings accounts and bonds, CDs, and so on. Something because if the bond rate is increasing, they can make more money there than they could in the stock market. That's the mentality behind it, and why you're going to see more conservative investors moving out of stocks, moving out of these riskier assets, and into safer assets like bonds. Now, tomorrow, what do we see tomorrow morning? If the CPI inflation data comes in and we've got anything above 8.5%, it's going to indicate that inflation is accelerating at a pace beyond expectations. I would absolutely believe that the stock market could react negatively and the stock market could go down if we see inflation come in higher than expectations. Now, even if inflation comes in lower than expectations, but it's continuing to grow, this is going to be somewhere between that 8.5% and that 7.9% that we saw last month. This still indicates that it's growing. It still indicates that it's accelerating. It simply indicates that inflation is not growing as much as they expected. Now, AMC stock and the entire stock market could still react negatively because it indicates that inflation is not yet under control, and the Federal Reserve could go out there and continue to manipulate and raise the interest rates in order to wrangle down and wrangle in inflation and get it back into a target rate. Right? Now, anything below 7.9%, I'm not necessarily expecting that. Clearly, analysts are not expecting that, but that would indicate that inflation is slowing at this point and even falling, so that it might already be under control, and therefore the Federal Reserve wouldn't have to be as aggressive in raising interest rates, and we could see the stock market, including AMC, soar because of something like that. Now, that would be unlikely, right? Because there's nothing to indicate at this point that prices are falling. Analyst expectations are actually for an acceleration in the inflation rate and so on. But what we do know is that the stock market, AMC stock, GameStop, all of these stocks that we're watching, they're going to be sensitive and they're going to react to the inflation rate. And we need to know whether or not this inflation is going to get under control or if it's going to spiral out of control, and we're going to continue with investors living in fear of what's to come, because that is the worst thing that we can see is investors living in fear, pulling out of the stock market, and continued declines that continue to snowball, and these I guess the red days continue on. We need some sort of a break. We need some sort of a I guess, rallying point. Falling inflation could absolutely be that point. I want to know what you guys think, though. Down in the comments below, let me know your expectations for tomorrow's interest rate, or not interest rate hike, but tomorrow's CPI inflation data, how it's going to relate to AMC stock, how it's going to relate to the overall stock market. And I don't know, guys. Get the excitement down in the comments below, because we need it after all the red days, and we might finally be bouncing on AMC. If this button right here is still red, make sure to click it, subscribe to the channel, join us, become a bro. We are here every single day, and we are growing our portfolios together. Get ClayBro883 on Twitter and Instagram, Webull, Binance, Gemini, Crypto.com, and until the next time, hope that each and every one of you have an awesome day.